The Seattle rain didn't fall, it attacked. It lashed against the tinted windows of the town car in relentless diagonal sheets, turning the morning commute into a blur of gray concrete and smeared neon. Alara Vance didn't mind the storm. In fact, she welcomed it. The chaotic drumming against the glass was a perfect mirror for the storm she had spent the last 2 years navigating, and today she was finally stepping out of the rain and into the eye of it. She took a slow, deliberate sip of her black espresso, letting the bitter, scalding liquid anchor her. On her lap rested a sleek, reinforced tablet, its screen glowing with the intricate, multi-layered schematics of the Obsidian Tower. It was a masterpiece of modern engineering, a 70-story luxury eco-resort and corporate headquarters designed to integrate seamlessly with the rugged Pacific Northwest landscape. It was also the most high-profile architectural commission on the West Coast. And it was hers, or at least it was going to be, the moment she walked through the doors of Ignis Holdings and proved she was the only person alive capable of bringing it to life. Alara traced a finger over the holographic rendering of the tower's cantilevered observation deck. Her jaw tightened. 2 years ago, a rendering like this would have been a source of pure, unadulterated joy. Back then, she had been a rising star at a mid-tier firm, brimming with naive optimism. Then came Marcus, her mentor, her business partner, and ultimately her betrayer. He had taken her designs for the Cascadia waterfront project, subtly altered the metadata, and presented them to the board as his own. By the time Alara had gathered the evidence to fight him, the non-compete clause she had blindly signed had been weaponized. She had been blacklisted, her reputation smeared as difficult and unstable, while Marcus bought a yacht with her intellectual property. She had spent 24 months in the architectural wilderness, taking freelance drafting jobs and rebuilding her portfolio from the ground up. She had clawed her way back, sharper, harder, and infinitely more cautious. The Obsidian Tower wasn't just a job, it was her redemption. It was the anvil upon which she would forge her new reputation, and she would not let anyone, especially not the notoriously reclusive billionaire who owned the company, knock her off it. The town car slowed, gliding to a smooth halt at the curb. Alara looked up. Ignis Holdings headquarters was less a building and more a monolith. It rose from the Seattle skyline like a jagged shard of volcanic glass, its facade composed of seamless, light-absorbing black panels that seemed to swallow the gloomy morning light. It was intimidating, austere, and undeniably powerful. It looked less like a place of business and more like a fortress designed to keep the world out. Perfect, Alara thought, a faint, predatory smile touching her lips. I speak fortress. She paid the driver, grabbed her leather portfolio case, and stepped out into the downpour. She didn't run. She walked with measured, deliberate strides, her tailored charcoal trench coat repelling the water, her posture rigid with purpose. The lobby of Ignis Holdings was a study in aggressive minimalism. Polished black marble floors reflected the recessed, amber-toned lighting. The air was perfectly climate-controlled, carrying a faint, inexplicable scent of ozone and something deeper, earthier, like wood smoke after a heavy rain. It was an odd olfactory detail for a hyper-modern corporate space, but Alara filed it away, her analytical mind already cataloging the environment. She approached the reception desk, a sweeping arc of brushed steel manned by a sharply dressed woman who looked up with a practiced, polite smile. "Good morning. How may I direct your call?" the receptionist asked. "Alara Vance," she said, her voice crisp and carrying effortlessly over the quiet hum of the lobby. "I have a 9 o'clock appointment with Julian Croft, Senior Project Manager. I'm here for the Obsidian Tower preliminary review." The receptionist's fingers flew across her keyboard. Her polite smile faltered for a fraction of a second, replaced by a flicker of genuine surprise. "Ms. Vance, of course. Mr. Croft is expecting you. He's on the 42nd floor. Executive Suite A." She handed Alara a sleek black keycard. "The elevators to the executive floors are to your left. They require the keycard for access." "Thank you." Alara turned and walked toward the elevators. She could feel the receptionist's eyes on her back, a mixture of curiosity and pity. Alara knew the rumors. Everyone in the Seattle design world knew the rumors about Ignis Holdings. They said the company was a ghost ship, run by algorithms and a board of directors with the CEO, Kalen Thorne, appearing only as a shadowy signature on massive wire transfers. They said he was ruthless, brilliant, and entirely devoid of human empathy. They said he fired lead architects for breakfast if their visions didn't align with his exact, unspoken specifications. Let him try, Alara thought. Swiping the keycard. The elevator doors slid open with a soft pneumatic hiss. She stepped inside and pressed the button for the 42nd floor. The doors closed, sealing her in a box of mirrored glass and brushed steel. As the elevator began its rapid ascent, Alara felt the familiar, slight pressure in her ears. She closed her eyes, taking a deep, centering breath. "You are the best architect in this city," she told herself, the mantra a familiar shield. "You know the load-bearing capacities of this building better than the people who poured the concrete. You are not here to beg. You are here to lead." The elevator chimed, a soft, melodic sound that felt entirely out of place in the imposing building. The doors opened directly into the executive suite. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The air up here was different. It was heavier, charged with a subtle static electricity that made the fine hairs on Alara's arms stand up. The scent of ozone and wood smoke was stronger here, almost intoxicating. "Miss Vance, you made it." Julian Croft hurried out from a glass-walled office. He was a man in his late 40s, wearing a suit that was expensive but slightly rumpled, his tie loosened. He had the harried, perpetually exhausted look of a middle manager trying to keep a lid on a pressure cooker. "Mr. Croft," Alara said, extending a hand. Her grip was firm, professional. "Thank you for having me. I've reviewed the preliminary structural reports you sent over last week." Julian shook her hand, his palms slightly clammy. Yes, excellent. Please, come in. We have the main conference room set up. The board is eager to see your vision for the interior integration." As they walked down the wide, carpeted corridor, Alara's eyes were already working, scanning the environment. She noticed the subtle, almost imperceptible variations in the ambient temperature. Near the large floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the stormy city, the air was cool, but as they passed a heavy, reinforced steel door marked Server and Infrastructure, the air grew noticeably, unnaturally warm. "Your climate control is uneven," Alara noted casually, not breaking her stride. "The thermal variance between the perimeter and the core is nearly 4 degrees. If you're running high-density server farms on this floor, you're going to need a dedicated geothermal exchange system, or your cooling costs will bleed your operational budget dry." Julian stopped walking and stared at her, his eyes widening. We hadn't even finalized the HVAC contracts yet. The previous consultants just said it was a minor anomaly." The previous consultants were looking at spreadsheets, not the building. Alara said smoothly, turning to face him. "A building breathes, Julian. If you don't listen to it, it will suffocate you. I'll have my team draft a geothermal integration proposal by Friday. It will save you 15% on long-term energy costs and align perfectly with the eco-resort branding." Julian blinked, then let out a breath that was half laugh, half sigh of relief. "God, I hope the rumors about you are true, Ms. Vance, because we desperately need someone who actually knows what they're doing. The CEO has been particular." "Particular how?" Alara asked, her tone carefully neutral. Julian lowered his voice, glancing down the hall as if the walls might have ears. "He rejected the last 3 design firms, said they lacked vision, said their structures were fragile. He hasn't been in the office in person for 6 months, but when he does review the plans, he tears them apart. He's arriving today for the final pitch. He wants to meet you." Alara's heart gave a single, hard thump against her ribs, but her face remained a mask of cool professionalism. This was it, the moment she had been preparing for. "Then I suggest we get started," she said. They entered the main conference room. It was a vast, circular space dominated by a massive, polished obsidian table. One entire wall was a floor-to-ceiling window, offering a breathtaking, albeit gray, panoramic view of the Seattle skyline and the churning waters of the Puget Sound. In the center of the table sat a highly detailed, 3-dimensional holographic model of the Obsidian Tower. Alara set her portfolio down and walked straight to the model. She didn't look at the chairs, she looked at the work. For the next 20 minutes, she and Julian went over the schematics. Alara was in her element. She spoke with absolute authority, pointing out load-bearing redundancies, suggesting material swaps that would enhance the building's seismic resilience, and outlining a spatial flow that maximized natural light while maintaining absolute privacy for the executive suites. She was sharp, incisive, and utterly commanding. She could feel Julian's respect growing with every passing minute. But beneath her professional exterior, a low hum of tension was building. The room felt too quiet. The storm outside seemed muted, as if the glass was thick enough to hold back the world. "All right," Julian said, checking his watch. He looked nervous again. "That's a solid foundation, Alara, truly. But now comes the hard part." "The CEO," she stated. Julian nodded. "He's in the adjacent boardroom. He requested to observe your presentation of the core aesthetic vision before he joins the discussion. He's intense, Miss Vance. Don't take his silence as disinterest, and for God's sake, don't let him intimidate you. He eats intimidation for breakfast. I don't intimidate easily, Julian, Alara said, picking up her tablet. She smoothed the front of her blazer, a simple grounding gesture. Let's go meet the ghost. Julian led her out of the conference room and down a short, private hallway to a set of heavy double mahogany doors. There was no nameplate, no indication of who lay beyond. Julian knocked twice, a sharp, precise sound. A deep, resonant voice answered from within. It was a voice that seemed to vibrate in the floorboards, rich and dark, with an undercurrent of something ancient and utterly controlled. Enter. Julian swallowed hard, gave Alara a final, encouraging nod and pushed the doors open. Alara stepped across the threshold, her chin held high, her gaze steady. The boardroom was dimly lit, the heavy curtains drawn against the storm. The only light came from a single low-hanging pendant lamp over the center of a long, dark wood table. And sitting at the head of that table was Caelan Thorne. He was not a ghost. He was a force of nature contained within a bespoke, charcoal-gray suit. He was massive, his broad shoulders stretching the fine fabric of his jacket. His dark hair was styled with deliberate casualness, but it was his face that commanded the room. It was a face carved from sharp, unforgiving angles, a strong jaw, a straight nose and cheekbones that could cut glass. But it was his eyes that arrested her completely. They were dark, impossibly deep, and currently fixed on her with an intensity that felt less like a look and more like a physical touch. As Alara stepped fully into the room, the air between them seemed to warp. A sudden sharp spike of heat flared at the base of her throat, right over her collarbone. It was a strange, localized burn, like a drop of molten wax accompanied by a sudden, overwhelming rush of adrenaline. Caelan Thorne's gaze dropped, just for a fraction of a second, to the exact spot on her collarbone where the heat was pulsing. His jaw clenched, a muscle ticking violently beneath the skin. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the distant, muffled rumble of thunder, and the sudden, frantic pounding of Alara's own heart. She didn't know it yet, but the game had already begun, and the rules had just changed.